Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Discovery, watching the massive space station grow larger on the main screen. Nexus Prime was unlike anything humanity had ever built. The station stretched for miles in every direction, its silver surface gleaming with millions of lights. Ships of strange designs docked at hundreds of ports, their alien forms both beautiful and terrifying. "Distance to station, 2,000 kilometers in closing," reported Navigation Officer Tony Kim from his console. His voice carried the excitement they all felt. This was the moment humanity had dreamed of for centuries. "All systems normal, Captain," added Chief Engineer Lisa Park. "The diplomatic shuttle is ready for launch." Morrison nodded and activated the ship's communication system. "Ambassador Carter, we're approaching the station. Are you ready for this?" Ambassador Helen Carter's voice came through clearly from the shuttle bay. "As ready as anyone can be for humanity's first meeting with an alien civilization. Or in this case, several alien civilizations." The captain smiled despite his nerves. Helen Carter had been Earth's top diplomat for 15 years. If anyone could handle this situation, it was her. But Morrison couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The Galactic Council's invitation had been polite but cold. They had demanded that humanity send only one ship and a small diplomatic team. "Captain, we're receiving a docking signal." "From the station," reported Communications Officer Dave Miller. "They're directing us to Docking Bay 77 Alpha." "Take us in, Mr. Kim," Morrison ordered. "Nice and slow. Let's not give them any reason to think we're hostile." The Discovery moved carefully toward the massive station. Through the viewports, the crew could see other ships docked nearby. Some looked like graceful works of art, all curves and flowing lines. Others appeared more functional, built for efficiency rather than beauty. All of them dwarfed human vessels in size and obvious technological advancement. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Blake entered the bridge wearing his dress uniform. As the ship's security chief, he would accompany the ambassador to the meeting. "Captain, the security team is ready." 6 Marines in dress uniform, sidearms only as requested by the Council. Morrison studied his security chief's face. Blake was a veteran of the Mars colony conflicts, a man who had seen real combat. If Blake was worried, Morrison knew he should be too. "Ryan, I want you to stay alert in there." "Something about this whole situation doesn't feel right," Blake nodded. "I've been thinking the same thing, sir. Why insist on such a small delegation? Why meet on a neutral station instead of inviting us to one of their worlds? And why did they want to know exactly how many ships humanity has?" Before Morrison could answer, the ship shuddered slightly as it docked with the station. Moments later, the airlock cycled and the diplomatic team prepared to make history. Ambassador Carter led the way, followed by Blake and his 6 Marines. They walked through a corridor that seemed designed for beings much larger than humans. The walls were smooth metal decorated with symbols that hurt to look at directly. Strange music played softly from hidden speakers, creating harmonies that human ears found unsettling. They entered a vast chamber with a domed ceiling that showed the stars beyond. Around a circular table sat representatives of dozens of alien species. Some were humanoid, others were so alien that Carter had to fight not to stare. At the head of the table sat 2 beings who commanded obvious respect from the others. The first was tall and elegant, with pale blue skin and 4 arms. When it spoke, its voice was like music. "I am Ambassador Veltar of the Zeridian Republic. We welcome humanity to this gathering." The second being was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, with thick gray skin and small black eyes. Its voice rumbled like distant thunder. "I am General Faxmer of the Krillian Empire. We have much to discuss." Carter took her seat and smiled diplomatically. "Thank you for this opportunity. Humanity is honored to meet with the Galactic Council. We hope this is the beginning of a long friendship between our peoples." Several aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. Veltar's expression remained pleasant, but something cold flickered in its large eyes. "Friendship," it repeated. "How charming. Tell me, Ambassador Carter, how many ships does humanity possess?" Carter kept her smile steady. "We have several 100 vessels of various types. Most are for exploration and trade, though we do maintain a defense fleet. And weapons? General Faxmer leaned forward. What weapons do your ships carry? Standard defensive systems, Carter replied carefully. Nothing more than necessary to protect ourselves from pirates and natural hazards. The general's small eyes glittered. Pirates. Yes, the galaxy has many of those, which is why the Council maintains order through strength and proper hierarchy. Veltar stood gracefully. Ambassador Carter, we have reviewed the data your people provided about your species. Humanity appears to be a warrior race. Your history is filled with conflicts, wars, and violence. This concerns the Council greatly. Carter felt Blake tense beside her, but kept her own voice calm. Our past has indeed been troubled, but we've learned from our mistakes. Humanity seeks peace with all intelligent species. Peace, Faxmer growled. A pretty word. But your species achieves space travel while still fighting wars on your own world. No civilized race has ever done such a thing. Around the table, other aliens nodded agreement. Carter began to realize that this was not the welcome she had expected. Veltar continued speaking. Every species in this galaxy follows the natural order. The strong guide the weak. The advanced protect the primitive. The Council maintains peace by ensuring that dangerous species are properly controlled. Controlled? Carter's diplomatic training kicked in, but she could feel the situation turning dangerous. I'm not sure I understand. General Faxmer stood, his massive form casting a shadow over the human delegation. It is simple, human. Your species will surrender all weapons technology to the Council. Your ships will be escorted to designated colony worlds where you will live under our protection. Any resistance will be met with force. The chamber fell silent. Ambassador Carter looked around the table and saw the same expression on every alien face. They had already decided humanity's fate before the meeting began. General Faxmer, Carter said carefully, humanity appreciates the Council's concern for galactic peace. However, we cannot accept these terms. We prefer to remain independent and earn our place in the galactic community through cooperation. The silence stretched longer. Then Faxmer began to laugh, a sound like grinding stone. Earn your place? He rumbled. Primitive savages do not earn anything. They submit or they are destroyed. Blake's hand moved toward his weapon, but Carter caught his eye and shook her head slightly. Not yet. Veltar's musical voice turned cold. The Council has spoken, Ambassador. You will submit to protective custody or your species will be eliminated as a threat to galactic peace. We have destroyed primitive races before. Your few hundred ships would not survive a day against our fleets. Carter stood slowly. In that case, General Ambassador, I believe this meeting is over. Humanity chooses to remain free. Faxmer's roar shook the chamber. Guards, arrest these primitives! The room erupted into chaos. Dozens of alien soldiers poured through hidden doors, weapons raised. Blake drew his sidearm and shouted to his Marines. Defensive positions! Protect the Ambassador! The firefight that followed would be remembered as the moment humanity announced itself to the galaxy. 6 human Marines and 1 security chief faced 50 alien soldiers in a chamber designed to trap them. By every logical calculation, the humans should have died within seconds. Instead, something happened that none of the aliens expected. The humans fought like demons. Blake put 3 shots into an advancing soldier, then used the alien's falling body as cover while he reloaded. Marine Sergeant Nick Parker grabbed an alien weapon from a fallen enemy and turned it on its former owners. The other Marines moved in patterns that seemed random but created crossfire zones that cut down attackers, but it was their refusal to surrender that truly shocked the aliens. Even when wounded, even when outnumbered, the humans kept fighting. When Parker ran out of ammunition, he drew his combat knife and charged a group of enemies twice his size. Fall back to the corridor, Blake shouted. Fighting withdrawal. The humans moved like they had trained for this exact situation, covering each other as they retreated. Blake grabbed Ambassador Carter and pushed her toward the exit while his Marines laid down covering fire. Captain Morrison, Blake spoke into his communicator as laser blasts scorched the air around him. Emergency extraction. The Council just declared war on humanity. The voice that came back was grim but determined. Copy that, Ryan. Get to the shuttle. We're coming to get you. The running battle through the station's corridors would later be studied by military historians across the galaxy. 7 humans fought their way through a station filled with thousands of hostile aliens. They used tactics no civilized species would consider, fighting from behind civilian cover, using improvised explosives, deliberately causing structural damage to create barriers. When they finally reached their shuttle, 3 Marines were wounded and Blake had taken a laser burn across his shoulder. Admiral Lisa Hayes stood in the command center of Earth Defense Headquarters, watching the holographic display show enemy fleet movements across known space. The blue lights representing human ships looked pathetically small compared to the red swarm of Council forces moving toward Earth. How many ships are they bringing? She asked Colonel Marcus Stone. Her chief strategic advisor. Stone checked his tablet. Our best estimate is 12,000 warships in the first wave alone. Intelligence suggests they have reserves of over 2 million vessels spread across their territory. Hayes nodded grimly. Earth's entire space fleet consisted of 347 ships, most of them designed for exploration rather than warfare. The math was simple and terrifying. General Patricia Cruz entered the command center with Dr. Amanda Foster, Earth's leading expert on alien biology. Admiral, we've finished analyzing the data from the Discovery's encounter. What did you find? Hayes asked. Dr. Foster activated her portable display, showing biological scans of the Council species. Something very interesting. Every alien species we encountered has evolved on worlds with abundant resources and few natural predators. Look at this. The display showed the Zeridian homeworld, a paradise of blue oceans and green continents. Perfect climate, no major predators, plant life that practically feeds itself to herbivores. The Zeridians never had to compete for survival. She switched to show the Krillian world. Desert planet, but with massive underground water reserves. The Krillians grew large and strong, but they never faced extinction-level threats. No ice ages, no supervolcanic eruptions, no asteroid impacts. Stone frowned. What are you saying, Doctor? I'm saying that every Council species reached space through peaceful cooperation and abundant resources. They never had to fight for survival, the way humans did. They don't understand warfare because they've never really needed to wage it. Admiral Hayes studied the data. But they have weapons, ships, armies. They have tools for maintaining order, Dr. Foster corrected. Their military doctrine is based on overwhelming force applied against weaker opponents who surrender when faced with superior numbers. They've never fought an enemy that refuses to give up. The communication system crackled to life. Admiral Hayes, this is Captain Morrison aboard the Discovery. We're approaching the outer defense perimeter. Jake, good to have you back. Report to the briefing room immediately. We need to hear everything that happened at that station. An hour later, Morrison sat with Blake and Ambassador Carter, describing the encounter in detail. The command staff listened in growing amazement as Blake described the firefight. They expected us to surrender as soon as they showed superior force, Blake explained. When we started shooting back, they seemed genuinely confused. Several of their soldiers actually stopped attacking and just stared at us. Carter added, their entire diplomatic approach was based on the assumption that we would submit to their authority once they explained our place in their hierarchy. The concept that we might refuse simply didn't occur to them. General Cruz leaned forward. What about their tactics during the fight? Basic formation fighting, Blake replied. They advanced in straight lines, took cover behind fixed positions, and tried to suppress us with volume of fire. Good tactics for fighting someone who's trying not to die. Terrible tactics for fighting someone who's already decided death is acceptable. Admiral Hayes made her decision. General Stone, activate the Prometheus Protocol. We're going to war. Stone hesitated. Admiral, the Prometheus Protocol assumes we're fighting a technologically superior enemy. It requires tactics that violate several interstellar warfare conventions. The interstellar warfare conventions were written by the Council, Hayes replied. I don't think they apply anymore. Within hours, Earth's entire military structure shifted to a wartime footing. But this wasn't preparation for conventional warfare. The Prometheus Protocol had been developed by human, military theorists who assumed humanity's first interstellar war would be against enemies with better technology and greater numbers. The protocol's core principle was simple: when you can't win through superior firepower, you win by being more ruthless than your enemy expects. Captain Morrison launched the first mission 3 days later. His target wasn't a military installation, but a Council supply depot orbiting a gas giant. The facility was lightly defended. Because the Council couldn't imagine anyone being foolish enough to attack their logistics network, Morrison's approach violated every principle of space combat doctrine. Instead of engaging the defending ships at maximum range, he ordered the Discovery to ram straight through their formation at full speed, absorbing massive damage to get close enough for his weapons to be effective. Captain, we're losing hull. Integrity on decks 4 through 7, reported Chief Engineer Park. Keep us together for another 2 minutes, Morrison replied. That's all we need. The Discovery's suicide charge carried it into the heart of the supply depot before the Council. Defenders could react. Morrison's crew fired everything they had at point-blank range, turning the massive facility into an expanding cloud of debris, but the real shock came when Morrison ordered his damaged ship to ram one of the defending vessels rather than attempt to escape. Captain, we can still make it to hyperspace, his navigation officer protested. Not the point, Morrison replied. We need to send a message. The Discovery's destruction took 2 Council ships with it, but more importantly, it established a pattern that would terrify the Council for months to come. Humans didn't retreat when faced with overwhelming odds. They attacked on the ground. Colonel Diana Torres was proving the same point on Kepler 442b, a mining world the Council had claimed as their own. Her battalion of 800 Marines faced 15,000 Council troops in what should have been a one-sided massacre. Instead, Torres turned the planet itself into a weapon. The local wildlife includes pack hunters with acidic saliva, she explained to her company commanders. The Council troops are using standard environmental suits. We're going to drive them into the nesting areas during feeding time. Captain, Roy Mitchell looked uncomfortable. Colonel, using native predators as weapons could be considered a war crime. Torres smiled grimly. Captain, we're fighting for the survival of our species. I'm willing to let history judge whether we went too far. The battle for Kepler 442b became a nightmare for the Council forces. Human Marines used every dirty trick in the book, poisoning water supplies, collapsing mine tunnels to create traps, even releasing the planet's equivalent of angry hornets into enemy camps, but it was the psychological warfare that proved most effective. Council soldiers were used to enemies who fought according to established rules. They couldn't cope with humans who used wounded comrades as bait, who played dead until enemies came close enough to attack, who booby-trapped their own casualties within a week. The 15,000 Council troops were in full retreat, abandoning the planet to Torres and her Marines. The reports reaching the Council leadership became increasingly frantic. Admiral Deathcar of the Council fleet sent a desperate message to his superiors. The humans refuse to follow established combat protocols. They attack when they should retreat. They fight when they should surrender. They seem to prefer death to defeat. General Thaxmer called an emergency meeting of the Council's military leadership. The massive Krillian stood before a holographic display showing human attack patterns. These primitives are using tactics that no civilized species would consider, he growled. They deliberately sacrifice their own ships to destroy ours. They attack our supply lines instead of our military forces. They fight like animals. Ambassador Veltar looked at the casualty reports with growing alarm. General, we are losing ships at an unacceptable rate. The humans have only a few hundred vessels, but they have already destroyed over 3,000 of ours. Impossible, Thaxmer snapped. Our technology is superior. Our numbers are overwhelming. Yes, but our crews surrender when their ships are crippled. Human crews continue fighting until their vessels explode. They ram our ships when they run out of ammunition. They use their damaged vessels as improvised weapons. The Council's greatest advantage, their overwhelming technological superiority, was being neutralized by humanity's refusal to fight by civilized rules. Human ships might be weaker, but they kept fighting long past the point where any reasonable crew would surrender. Dr. Foster's analysis proved correct in ways no one had expected. The Council species had evolved beyond the need for desperate measures. They had forgotten that sometimes survival requires being willing to lose everything. Humans had never forgotten that lesson. Admiral Hayes reviewed the latest intelligence reports from her command center. The Council was mobilizing additional fleets, but their advance had slowed as commanders became reluctant to engage human forces directly. "They're learning to fear us," General Stone observed. "Good," Hayes replied. "Fear makes people make mistakes, and we're going to take advantage of every mistake they make." She activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, this is Admiral Hayes. Operation Wildfire is now active. Target their infrastructure, their supply lines, their civilian shipping. Make them understand that declaring war on humanity was the biggest mistake they ever made." Commander Alex Morgan crouched in the maintenance shaft of the Council's primary shipyard, watching enemy technicians work below through a grate. The massive facility orbited the industrial world of Nexus Beta, producing warships for the Council. Fleet 24 hours a day, Morgan's team had spent 3 weeks infiltrating the station. Getting inside had required them to hide in a cargo container for 6 days without food or water. Most species would have died from the experience. Humans just got angry. "Are you in position, Kelly?" Morgan whispered into his communicator. Lieutenant Kelly Brooks replied from the computer core 3 levels below. "Ready to upload the virus, Commander. Once I activate it, we'll have maybe 10 minutes before security traces the intrusion." "Do it." Brooks connected her portable computer to the shipyard's main system. The virus she uploaded wasn't designed to destroy the network. That would be too obvious, too easy to fix. Instead, it was designed to make the system unreliable in subtle ways. Ships would launch with navigation computers that worked perfectly 99% of the time. Weapon systems would function normally until the moment they were needed. Life support would maintain perfect conditions right up until it randomly decided to flood a compartment with toxic gas. The psychological warfare doctrine developed by human military theorists was simple: make your enemy afraid of their own equipment. "Upload complete," Brooks reported. "The virus is designed to spread through their entire network over the next 6 months. They won't even know it's there until their ships start malfunctioning." Morgan smiled grimly. "Good work. Now let's get out of here before they realize what we've done." The team made their way to the escape pods they had hidden in the station's outer hull. As they prepared to leave, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. "Commander," called Sergeant Pete Collins from his watch position, "Council security forces are moving toward the computer core. They found Brooks' access point." "Kelly, get out of there now," Morgan ordered. 30 more seconds, Commander." "I'm installing a secondary virus that will activate if they try to purge the first one." Morgan watched Council soldiers rushing through the corridors below. Brooks was running out of time. "Kelly, move." "Done." Brooks emerged from the computer core just as enemy soldiers reached her level. She sprinted toward the escape route while laser fire scorched the walls around her. The team reached their hidden pods and launched into space just as the shipyard's security forces realized what had happened. But by then, the virus was already spreading through the Council's computer networks like a digital plague. Back on Earth, Dr. Foster was making another breakthrough in her study of human combat effectiveness. Her latest research focused on the biochemical changes that occurred when humans fought for their families and homes. "Admiral Hayes, you need to see this," she called, reviewing brain scans of human soldiers before and after combat. Hayes joined her in the research lab. "What have you found, Amanda?" "Something that explains why we're winning battles we should lose." Foster displayed brain scans on her monitor. Look at these readings from Colonel Torres Marines during the Battle of Kepler 442b. The scans showed human brains during combat, highlighting areas that glowed with unusual activity. When humans fight for something they love, their brains release a cocktail of chemicals that actually makes them stronger, faster, and more resistant to pain. Adrenaline, endorphins, dopamine, and several compounds we're still trying to identify. Hayes studied the data. You're saying our soldiers literally become superhuman when they're angry enough? Not superhuman, but significantly enhanced beyond normal human capabilities. The effect is most pronounced when they're fighting to protect others rather than just for personal survival. Foster switched to video footage from the battle. Watch this Marine, Corporal Danny Walsh. He's carrying a wounded comrade while fighting off 6 Council soldiers. According to his medical readings, he should have collapsed from exhaustion 10 minutes earlier. On the screen, Walsh moved with impossible speed and strength, his wounded friend slung over his shoulder while he fired at pursuing enemies. His face showed no sign of fatigue, only focused determination. The Council species don't have this response, Foster continued. Their evolution selected for cooperation and efficiency, not desperate combat situations. When they're injured or exhausted, they become weaker. When we're injured or exhausted, we can become more dangerous. The research explains something that had puzzled Council military analysts. Human forces seemed to fight harder as battles went on, while Council troops became less effective as casualties mounted. Captain Sarah Lynch was proving this point during the Battle of Ross 128. Her destroyer, the Defiant, had taken massive damage from 3 Council dreadnoughts. The ship's hull was breached in 17 places, life support was failing, and half her crew was wounded. Any logical commander would have surrendered. Instead, Lynch ordered her crew to channel their fury over the recent destruction of the colony ship New Jerusalem, which had been carrying families evacuating from the war zone. "Listen up, people," Lynch announced over the ship's communication system. "Those Council ships just killed 3,000 civilians, including women and children." "I don't know about you, but that makes me angry." The response from her crew was immediate and visceral. Wounded engineers crawled through damaged sections to repair critical systems. Gunners with broken ribs kept firing even as their stations sparked and smoked around them. Chief Petty Officer Randy Cooper, bleeding from a head wound, managed to restore power to the ship's main weapons just as the largest Council dreadnought moved in for the killing blow. "Target their bridge," Lynch ordered. "Full spread, everything we've got." The Defiant's missiles streaked across space, striking the enemy flagship at the moment its shields cycled down to fire. The massive alien vessel broke apart in a chain of explosions that lit up the star system, but Lynch wasn't finished. Her crippled destroyer rammed the 2nd dreadnought at full speed, the impact destroying both ships but saving the human colony. Below, the 3rd Council ship retreated, its commander filing a report that would mystify his superiors. Human vessel fought beyond all reasonable parameters. Crew appeared to become more effective as ship sustained damage. Recommend avoiding direct engagement with human forces. Similar reports were flooding into Council headquarters from across their territory. Human forces were demonstrating combat behaviors that defied all military logic. Lieutenant Commander Blake, now promoted to colonel after his heroics at Nexus Prime, was training a new generation of human special forces. His students included volunteers from alien species who had begun defecting from the Council. "The key to human tactics," Blake explained to a mixed class of humans and aliens, "is that we don't fight to win. We fight to make sure the other guy loses." A Zeridian defector named Felinara raised one of her 4 hands. "Colonel Blake, I do not understand the distinction. Fighting to win means you try to achieve victory with minimal losses. Fighting to make the other guy lose means you're willing to sacrifice everything to hurt your enemy. Most species can't tell the difference, but your enemy always can." Blake activated a holographic display showing the recent liberation of the prison world Tartarus. "Watch how Sergeant Parker approaches this Council stronghold." The display showed Parker leading his squad in a direct assault on a heavily fortified Position. Instead of trying to find cover or flank the enemy, Parker's team charged straight at the guns. This should be suicide, Blake continued, but watch what happens. The Council defenders, expecting the humans to seek cover, had positioned their weapons to cover the logical approach routes. When the humans ignored logic and charged directly into the strongest defensive position, the aliens couldn't adjust their tactics fast enough. Parker's squad suffered heavy casualties, but they took the stronghold and freed over 1,000 political prisoners from various species who had opposed council rule. The prison guards couldn't understand why we kept coming, Parker reported later. They kept shooting, but we kept advancing. Eventually, they panicked and ran. The liberated prisoners joined the human cause immediately. Word spread throughout the galaxy that humans were the only species willing to fight the Council directly, and defections increased dramatically. Dr. Foster's research team made their most important discovery while studying these defector species. Every alien race that joined humanity shared one common trait. They had evolutionary experience with predators or environmental challenges. The species that ally with us are the ones that understand survival, Foster reported to Admiral Hayes. The Drachneri evolved on a world with seasonal predator swarms. The Vorthak survived multiple extinction events on their homeworld. They recognize something in us that the Council species don't. What do they recognize? Hayes asked. The willingness to pay any price for freedom. Meanwhile, the Council was attempting to adapt to human tactics by making their own forces more aggressive through chemical enhancement. The results were disastrous. Council soldiers, pumped full of artificial stimulants, became violent but lost their tactical discipline. They attacked randomly instead of following coordinated battle plans. They fought each other as often as they fought humans. Admiral Lisa Hayes stood on the bridge of the flagship New Earth, watching the massive Council fortress world of Dominion Prime grow larger on the main display. 2 years of war had brought them to this moment. The planet below was the Council's last major stronghold, defended by over 50,000 warships and billions of soldiers. Fleet status report, Hayes commanded. Captain Bill Johnson, her fleet coordinator, checked his displays. We have 800 ships in attack formation, Admiral. The enemy has us outnumbered 60-1, Hayes nodded. The odds were actually better than usual for humanity. Most of their victories had come when they were outnumbered 100-1 or worse. Signal from Colonel Stone on the surface, reported Communications Officer Janet Mills. Ground forces are in position for the assault. Stone's voice crackled through the communication system. Admiral, we have 15,000 Marines ready to attack their primary command center. Intelligence estimates 40 million enemy soldiers are defending the planet. Understood, Marcus. Begin the assault when ready. On the planet's surface, Stone looked at his tactical display with grim satisfaction. The Council had made the same mistake they always made. They had positioned their forces logically, defending the most strategically important targets with the heaviest concentrations of troops. Sergeant Nick Parker crouched beside Stone in the command bunker. Colonel, why are we attacking their strongest position? Wouldn't it make more sense to hit their supply depots first? Stone smiled. Nick, what's the one thing the Council never expects us to do? The logical thing, sir. Exactly. They've spent 2 years trying to predict our tactics. They know we attack where we shouldn't, when we shouldn't, and how we shouldn't. So, today we're going to do the one thing they'll never see coming, which is, we're going to do exactly what any sane military force would do. We're going to attack their command center with overwhelming force during daylight hours using standard assault tactics. Parker stared at his commander. Sir, that's suicide. They'll be ready for a conventional attack. Will they? Nick, when was the last time humanity used conventional tactics? Parker thought about it. Never, sir. We've always done the crazy thing. Right, so today the crazy thing is to do the normal thing. Stone activated his communicator. All units, this is Stone, Operation Sanity is a go. Attack the command center using textbook assault doctrine. Do everything exactly by the book. Across the battlefield, human Marines moved forward in perfect formation. They advanced under covering fire, used proper communication protocols, and followed standard small unit tactics. For the first time in the war, humanity was fighting like a civilized military force. The Council defenders were completely unprepared. General Korthval, commanding the planet's defenses, watched the human assault with growing confusion. "They're advancing in straight lines," he told his staff. "They're using conventional tactics. This must be a diversion." "General," his aide reported, "the human fleet is also attacking our orbital platforms using standard battle formations. No ramming attacks, no suicide runs, just normal ship-to-ship combat." Korthval studied the tactical displays. Every instinct told him this was a trick. Humans didn't fight this way. They were chaotic, unpredictable, willing to sacrifice everything for minimal gains. "Where's the real attack?" he demanded. "What are they really trying to do?" While the Council commander wasted precious time looking for a hidden strategy that didn't exist, Parker's squad reached the outer defenses of the command center. The enemy positions were designed to repel human-style chaos attacks, not conventional assaults. "Demolition charges on the wall," Parker ordered. "Standard breach protocol." The explosives went off exactly as planned, creating a textbook-perfect hole in the defensive line. Parker's Marines poured through the gap using fire and movement tactics that any military academy would have approved. The Council soldiers defending the position had spent months preparing for human attacks. They expected improvised explosives, suicide charges, and psychological warfare. They had no idea how to respond to humans who fought by the rules. "They're not acting crazy," one Council soldier reported to his commander. "They're fighting like real soldiers." "Impossible," came the reply. "Humans don't know how to fight properly," but they did. Humanity had centuries of military doctrine and training. They had simply chosen not to use it because unconventional tactics gave them an advantage against enemies who expected conventional warfare. Today, conventional tactics gave them an advantage against enemies who expected unconventional warfare. Captain Morrison, now commanding a captured Council dreadnought renamed the Liberty, demonstrated the same principle in space. Instead of ramming enemy ships or using desperate tactics, he fought a careful, methodical battle against the orbital defenses. "Target their shield generators," Morrison ordered. "Standard firing pattern, maximum efficiency." Chief Weapons Officer Carol Price looked confused. "Captain, shouldn't we try something more creative?" "Not today, Carol. Today we show them that humans can fight better than they can, even when we follow their own rules." The Liberty's guns spoke with precise, calculated fire. Morrison's crew had studied Council tactical manuals captured during the war. They knew exactly how the enemy expected to fight, and they were better at it than the enemy was. The orbital battle became a masterclass in conventional space warfare. Human ships maneuvered with textbook precision, concentrated their fire on logical targets, and supported each other according to established doctrine. The Council fleet, trained to react to human unpredictability, couldn't adapt to human professionalism. Their commanders kept waiting for the chaos that never came. Admiral Zethkar, commanding the Council Defense Fleet, sent increasingly frantic messages to his superiors. "The humans are fighting normally. This must be a trick. Request permission to withdraw and assess their true strategy." "Denied," came the reply from Council headquarters. "Humans are incapable of conventional warfare. Defeat them quickly before they revert to their usual chaos tactics." But Zethkar's fleet was already losing. Human ships, fighting with cold efficiency, instead of desperate courage, were proving superior to Council forces in every measurable way. Human crews were better trained, human captains made faster decisions, and human technology had improved dramatically over 2 years of constant warfare. On the ground, Stone's assault reached the command center itself. The building was a massive structure designed to withstand any conceivable attack. Its defenses could have held off human chaos tactics for months. They lasted 6 hours against human conventional tactics. "Breach the main door," Stone ordered. Standard entry procedures. Parker's demolition team placed shaped charges exactly where military doctrine said they should go. The explosion was precisely calculated to destroy the door without damaging the structure beyond it. Stones. Marines poured through the breach in perfect formation, securing the building floor by floor using tactics that had been developed over centuries of human warfare. General Korthval was captured in his own command center, still looking around in confusion. "Where's the trick?" he demanded as human soldiers placed him under arrest. "What was your real plan?" Stone removed his helmet and looked at the alien general. "There was no trick. We just fought better than you did." Dr. Foster's latest research had prepared humanity for this moment. Her analysis of council psychology had revealed their greatest weakness. They had grown so accustomed to human unpredictability that they had forgotten how to fight a conventional war. The council species have been civilized for so long that they've lost their edge, Foster explained to Admiral Hayes over the communication link. They expect their enemies to be either weaker primitives who surrender quickly or chaotic forces that can be defeated through superior organization. "But we're neither," Hayes replied, watching her fleet systematically destroy the council orbital. "Defenses. Exactly. We're a species that has mastered both chaos and order. We can fight dirty when we need to, and we can fight clean when that gives us an advantage. The council can only do one or the other." The battle for Dominion Prime ended with complete human victory. For the first time in the war, humanity had won through superior tactics and training rather than desperate courage and sacrifice, but the psychological impact on the council was even greater than the military victory. They had convinced themselves that humans were dangerous because they were primitive and unpredictable. The idea that humans might also be more skilled soldiers than they were had never occurred to them. Word of the victory spread throughout the galaxy faster than light. Species that had remained neutral in the war began to reconsider their positions. If humans could defeat the Council using conventional tactics, what did that say about the Council's claim to be the galaxy's natural rulers? Admiral Hayes received reports of uprisings on dozens of Council worlds. Species that had been controlled for centuries suddenly began demanding their freedom, inspired by humanity's example. "Admiral," Captain Johnson reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from 17 Council sector fleets. They're asking for terms?" Hayes considered the offer. 2 years ago, humanity had been facing extinction. Now they were dictating terms to their former oppressors. "Signal the Council fleet commanders," she ordered. Admiral Lisa Hayes walked through the corridors of Nexus Prime, the same station where humanity's war had begun 3 years earlier, but everything was different now. The cold, sterile halls were filled with representatives from hundreds of species, many wearing the blue armbands that marked them as allies of humanity. The council chambers had been rebuilt after the damage from Lieutenant Commander Blake's fighting retreat. Now they served as the meeting place for the new Galactic Federation, an organization based on cooperation rather than domination. Hayes entered the main chamber and took her place at the circular table. Around her sat beings from across the galaxy, but the two most important chairs belonged to the former leaders of the council. General Thaxmer sat in heavy restraints, his massive frame hunched in defeat. Beside him, Ambassador Valtar maintained her elegant posture, but her forearms trembled slightly. Both faced charges of crimes against countless species. "The tribunal will now hear final statements," announced Judge Krelenok, a member of the Vortex species that had joined humanity early in the war. "General Thaxmer, you may speak." The huge Krillian raised his head slowly. "I do not understand how this happened. We had superior numbers, superior technology, superior strategy. How did a primitive species defeat the greatest military force in galactic history?" Hayes stood to respond. "General, you're still making the same mistake you made 3 years ago. You think strength comes from technology and numbers, but real strength comes from having something worth fighting for." "Emotional nonsense," Thaxmer growled. "Logic determines the outcome of warfare, not feelings. Then explain how you lost." The question hung in the air like a challenge. Thaxmer had no answer because the answer would require admitting that everything he believed about warfare was wrong. Ambassador Veltar spoke quietly. Admiral Hayes, I must ask, what will you do with us? Will you execute us as we would have executed your leaders? Hayes considered the question carefully. The old council had ruled through fear and the threat of extinction for any species that opposed them. It would be easy to respond with the same brutality. No, Hayes finally said. We'll do something your council never learned to do. We'll show mercy to defeated enemies. Mercy? Veltar's musical voice carried genuine confusion. But we tried to destroy your entire species. Yes, you did. And that was wrong. But killing you won't bring back the people who died in this war. Instead, you'll spend the rest of your lives working to repair the damage you caused. Dr. Amanda Foster stepped forward with a data pad in her hands. Admiral, we've completed our analysis of why humanity won this war. The tribunal should hear our findings. Hayes nodded. Proceed, Doctor. Foster activated a holographic display showing the evolutionary history of various galactic species. Every member of the old council evolved on worlds where cooperation led to prosperity. They developed advanced technology through peaceful collaboration and abundant resources. The display showed beautiful worlds with perfect climates and rich ecosystems. But humanity evolved differently. We developed on a world that tried to kill us constantly. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, plague, predators, natural disasters. The hologram shifted to show Earth's violent history. We didn't become intelligent despite these challenges. We became intelligent because of them. Every crisis made us stronger, more adaptable, more determined to survive. General Thaxmer stared at the display. You're saying your primitive nature is actually an advantage? Not primitive, Foster corrected. Tested. Every human innovation, every advance in our technology, every aspect of our culture has been forged by necessity. We learned to cooperate because cooperation meant survival. We learned to fight because fighting meant survival. Most importantly, we learned that sometimes you have to risk everything to protect what matters. Captain Jake Morrison entered the chamber, followed by several other human officers and their alien allies. Morrison had been chosen to command the new Galactic Defense Force, a voluntary organization dedicated to protecting peaceful species from external threats. Admiral Hayes, Morrison reported, we've received confirmation that the Drakneri homeworld is secure. The Zeridian resistance movement has also been neutralized peacefully. Hayes smiled. The transition from the old council system to the new Federation had not been entirely smooth. Some species had tried to fill the power vacuum left by the Council's defeat. But the new galactic order was already proving more stable than the old. 1. Captain Morrison, tell the tribunal about the Drakneri situation. Morrison activated another display showing a star system on the galactic rim. The Drakneri military tried to establish their own empire after the Council fell. They invaded 3 neighboring systems and declared themselves the new regional power. How did humanity respond? Judge Krellenach asked. We sent 1 ship, Morrison replied. My old command, the Discovery. Thaxmer laughed bitterly. 1 ship against an entire fleet? More human madness? Actually, no, Morrison corrected. This time we used pure logic. We calculated exactly what it would take to defeat the Drakneri fleet. Then we did exactly that. No desperate tactics, no sacrificial charges, just superior strategy and execution. The display showed the brief battle. The Discovery, now upgraded with the best technology from dozens of Federation species, had systematically dismantled the Drakneri fleet in less than an hour. The Drakneri admiral surrendered when he realized his forces were completely outmatched, Morrison continued. He asked how 1 human ship could defeat 50 of theirs. I told him the same thing Admiral Hayes told General Thaxmer. We had something worth fighting for. Dr. Foster added, this brings us to our most important discovery. Humanity didn't win this war because we're naturally violent or aggressive. We won because we're the only species in the galaxy that learned to fight for love instead of conquest. Love? Veltar repeated the word as if it were foreign to her. Love of our families, our homes, our friends, our freedom, Foster explained. Every other species in the galaxy fights for resources, territory, or dominance. Humans fight to protect what we care about. That's why we never surrender, even when we should. That's why we keep fighting when we're outnumbered. That's why we take impossible risks and make unthinkable sacrifices. Hayes stood and addressed the entire assembly. The old council maintained peace through fear and oppression. The new Federation will maintain peace through cooperation and mutual defense. Any species that threatens peaceful worlds will face the combined might of every Federation member. And humanity will lead this force? Asked a representative from the Korth Collective. Humanity will serve this force, Hayes corrected. We've learned something important from this war. Being the strongest doesn't give you the right to rule. Being the strongest gives you the responsibility to protect those who can't protect themselves. The trial concluded with sentences for the former council leadership. Instead of execution, they were assigned to work rebuilding the worlds their policies had damaged. It was a mercy that shocked many species, but it established the moral foundation of the new galactic order. Later, Hayes stood on the observation deck of Nexus Prime, looking out at the ships docked at the station. Human vessels worked alongside alien designs, their crews cooperating on projects that would have been impossible under the Council's rigid hierarchy. Captain Morrison joined her at the viewport. Admiral, do you think this will work? A galaxy governed by cooperation instead of force? Hayes watched a group of human children playing with young aliens in the station's recreation area. They were the first generation to grow up knowing that different species could be friends instead of enemies. Jake, 3 years ago, the Council thought humanity was too primitive to govern ourselves. Today, we're helping govern the galaxy. If, we can change that much, maybe the galaxy can change too? Morrison nodded. The children seemed to think so. On the deck below, a human girl named Lucy Shun was teaching a young Zeridian how to play an Earth game called Tag. The alien child's forearms gave her an advantage, but Lucy's determination kept the game competitive. You're fast, Lucy told her friend, but you give up too easy. I do not understand, the Zeridian replied. When you catch me, the game is over. No, Lucy explained patiently. When you catch me, the game starts over. That's the point. You keep playing until you don't want to play anymore? Hayes smiled. The children were already learning the lesson that had taken the galaxy a war to understand. The point wasn't winning or losing. The point was never giving up on something that mattered. Dr. Foster appeared beside them with her final report. Admiral, I've completed the analysis of why this war ended the way it did, and the Council species had reached a point in their evolution where they avoided conflict because they had everything they needed. Humanity reached the same level of technology while still needing to fight for survival. That made us the only species? In the galaxy that combined advanced civilization with warrior instincts, Hayes considered this. So we're not more violent than other species, we're more desperate. Not desperate, Foster corrected. Determined. Other species fight until the cost becomes too high? Humans fight until there's nothing left to fight with. That's not desperation, that's love.